We in here? Hello, everyone. All right, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. Once again. So just so happens that my Monday stream coincides with the day that I reached 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is pretty cool. I've been waiting for this milestone for a long time, so it feels pretty exciting. Because I've talked about this before, but my channel like plateaued for like a year. So it kind of felt for a while that I was never going to reach this milestone. But I did. So I'm happy about that. Yeah, pretty much the streams are on Monday now. They have been for like the last like 2 months, month and a half. And Monday's just a better day for me than Sunday. So I got the stream started a little bit later than normal, or later than I wanted to. The stream's sort of been late the last couple of days. I want to start at like literally like 2 hours before now, but had some things to do. Had some errands. Had to go to the bank. Yeah, I don't think that I'm gonna go back to Sundays, at least not anytime soon. But it's funny to me, the title of the stream, live stream Sunday on a Monday. So that's probably still what it's gonna be called. It's Sunday with an E, not with a Y. So it's different. There's a fan running behind me. Is it too loud, or is it can you even hear it? Is it annoying? A lot of people have suggested that I eat a sundae on stream, and I'm not exactly sure why so many people want to see me do that. But maybe someday. When I move my head over here, the camera changes the color. I guess because I'm blocking less of the green. But when I move over here, it remembers that my face is there. I don't really eat Sundays that much because I do sort of a very low sugar, low carb diet. I'm sure there's some way to make a low carb Sunday though. Maybe I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll do a stream where I like do a cooking video where I make a sundae. Have I ever thought about shaving my facial hair? Have I thought about it? I guess. Yeah, I've thought about it, but I don't think that's the thing that I'm gonna do. William Dal Porto, thank you for the $10 super chat. Congrats, dude. Glad to see you hit that milestone. Awesome. Appreciate that. Do. What's up, Nada? What is my favorite food to cook? My favorite food to cook? I don't know if I have a favorite. I just cook a lot of stuff, and I just like cooking in general. Maybe eggs. If I consider doing some part-time jobs or something where you can work at your leisure, like Uber. Yeah, I mean, I've done stuff like that. There's like a lot of things you can do online to make money. I don't know if I would like to do Uber, but I can't do Uber anyway because my car is too old. I have a pretty old car, and you have to have a car that I think it has to be at least 10 years old. My car is older than 10 years old. Or it has to be at most 10 years old. But I don't think I would want to do Uber. I would prefer to do something like Uber Eats, Postmates, stuff like that. But I've done part-time jobs. I'm a little hesitant to spend too much time on a part-time job because that takes away from the time spent doing YouTube related stuff. And that's the main thing I'm trying to build up right now. Do you think more people will vote on the midterms compared to the last presidential election? Probably. I think a lot of people are really like paying attention to politics, like more so than before. And a lot of people are just like more like engaged with politics. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a higher than average turnout. As for what's going to happen, I don't know. Before, like if you asked me a few months ago, I would have said it's you know, the Republicans are still going to control everything. That's just how it's going to be. But as time goes on, it seems more and more likely that the Democrats might take some seats. Will they take enough seats in order to become a majority? I don't know. I think it's an uphill battle. But we kind of need that to happen. So if you guys, everybody who lives in America, please vote in the midterm elections. Who do you think the Democrats will nominate for president? There's just no way to know that. I have no idea. I mean, maybe if you super follow politics and in the all that stuff, you might have an idea, but the people that are nominated are always super random to me. And I just had no idea where they came from. Like, I didn't even know who Barack Obama was before he ran for president. And I didn't know who John Kerry was. Some people like Al Gore, you know, that was a little bit, you could have seen that one coming because he was like the vice president. But usually it's like some random guy that I never heard of before. And I guess Hillary is, you could have seen that one coming. Seems unlikely that Hillary's going to try again, but I don't know. I think it would be very hard for Trump to win another election, but what do I know? I thought it would be hard for him to win the first one, so. I could see people like I could see Bernie Sanders running again. I don't know if you guys follow Tulsi Gabbard. I believe she's a congresswoman. I don't know if she's a senator, but she's a representative from Hawaii. And she's been like really outspoken and active lately. So I wouldn't be surprised if she announced a bid. And I'd be super into that because she's pretty cool. For the most part. Yeah, she's a congresswoman from Hawaii. A lot of people are saying like Kamala Harris. A lot of people want Elizabeth Warren to run, but she has so far shown like no interest. Yeah, Bernie Sanders is pretty old. Do you think Trump would resign? No. I don't think he would ever resign. Even if he had a 0% approval rate, I don't think he would resign. They're going to have to like carry him out of there in handcuffs. I think that's the only way he's going to leave. Or unless he gets impeached and removed, but I don't think that's going to happen. Electric Lomain, thank you for the 555. Congrats, T1J. I dreamed of this moment, and it's here. How do you feel? Speech. I'm not going to give a speech, but like I've been saying, I've been waiting for this milestone for a long time, so I'm glad that we're here, and it's onwards and upwards. I mean, it's somewhat of an arbitrary milestone. I mean, it's not exactly arbitrary because, you know, it's sort of like demonstrable that people take your channel more seriously when there's more digits in the subscriber number. Like, it's kind of stupid, but it's true. And there's literally things you can get when you have over 100,000 subscribers. For example, you can get a verification badge on your channel, which I'm going to see if I can get that at some point. You get a plaque. You used to have to have over 100,000 subscribers to get a join button, but I think that they lowered the requirements for that. So, you know, it's not exactly arbitrary, but at the end of the day, you know, nothing has really changed. Just onwards and upwards. Let's just keep growing. Appreciate it, Alex. I have not played the new Spider-Man game. I don't have any consoles. I don't have a PS4. Do I follow any sports? The only sport that I follow closely is college football, and my team is Alabama. I watch a little bit of NFL, but I don't watch enough to really say that I'm a true fan. You think Democrats can or should take a page from Republicans and nominate an outsider, businessman, and or celebrity? I'm thinking Zuckerberg could pull business conservatives, social liberals. Probably not. See, it is a mistake. I think it is false. The idea that America is split right down the middle between like liberals and conservatives, and really how you win is by appealing to the people in the middle, like the conservative Democrats and the more moderate Republicans. I feel like that's a false situation. I think that probably most people are socially progressive for the most part. Most voters, or at least most people who are voting age. In terms of like economic policy, that's a little more tricky. But I think the further we go, it's becoming more and more clear that these sort of anti-consumer, pro-business, pro-rich people policies just don't work and they don't help anybody. So honestly, I feel like a more progressive candidate is what they need. Because I think the reason that Democrats lose is because progressives don't vote, not because they haven't appealed to the center enough. So if they can find someone that can actually get progressives to vote, then I think that they might have better luck. But I don't know. That's just my speculation. I could be wrong. Roll Tide indeed, Alex. Appreciate it, Mizuti. Appreciate it, Danatonan. Thanks, Mabase. So I plan on making more videos on Sam Harris. I don't plan on it. If something comes up that I feel is worth talking about, then I will. I don't think most people are progressive, but I think that most people are socially liberal. Like most people have non-asshole social beliefs, I think. Most people agree that people should be just left alone as long as they don't hurt anyone else. And I think most people agree that there should be something in place to take care of people who are less fortunate or who have less. And the people that like strongly disagree with that, I don't think represent any kind of majority in any developed country, much less America. I could be wrong though. I don't really follow MMA, so I don't know anything about it. Have I seen Noel's response to my Straight Dude Logic video? No, I don't watch response videos. Assuming you're talking about Noel Plum. Is that his name? he's done a response. He did a response. He's probably done several response videos to me, but I watched one a long time ago, and I found it to be very like misrepresentative of my video, and like intentionally so. So that sort of killed any desire I had to watch his videos. And you know, that's part of why I don't watch response videos at all, because they're always like that. In fact, I did a whole video about why I don't like response videos. Because I used to watch them, and they were always bad. They always, and not necessarily maliciously so, although usually it seems like they were intentionally being disingenuous, like intentionally warping your argument in order to make themselves seem smarter. But not always like that. But still, just the nature of the format of response videos incentivizes people to strawman your arguments. And it's just not. It's just dumb, and it's not. It's just frustrating to watch. So I was like, I'm not watching. I'm not doing that anymore. And then sometimes the response videos are just douchey and mean spirited, and definitely don't want to watch that. This is the thing that, I mean, this is maybe one thing that like separates me from a lot of these other sort of political discourse YouTubers, is like I don't really feel the need to get involved in these spats and these like online back and forth. Like I have no desire to do that. Like I'm a grown man. I'm not gonna be sitting here arguing with people on the internet. Got better things to do. I'm very concerned. I gotta think about my own well-being and mental health. I'm not just gonna do it just because, you know, someone's like challenging me. You know, this isn't like middle school where someone like challenges you and, you know, everyone's gonna make fun of you. Like, I'm grown, dude. Yeah, I know. There are people that I agree with that do response videos. I haven't watched a lot of Sean's response videos because, again, I don't really like them. I think that Sean is smart, and I think that the thing with Sean is he usually responds to like low-hanging fruit, so it's like hard for me to imagine that he's misrepresenting them, because, you know, if you make a response video to like Stefan Molyneux, then it's like, yeah, that guy's like a maniac. So like I'm gonna guess that you're not misrepresenting him because I know that he has ridiculous views. But still, even when it's done by people I agree with, I think that the format is inherently flawed. I don't think that it's a useful way to actually have a discussion. I don't know Sean that well. He strikes me as someone that wouldn't intentionally be dishonest in a video. But like I said, the format incentivizes straw men, and sometimes it's just unavoidable. Thank you, Edgar Allan Flo. If you were to be a crash course host, what kind of series would you think you could host? I don't know. I mean, most of those I think are just scripted, and the people just read the script. So I could do any of them, I guess. If it was something that I would have to be an expert on or know a lot about, then I don't know if I could do any. Maybe like human dynamics, or like relationship dynamics, things like that. If there was one about how to play Smash Brothers, I could do that. Is Steve Bannon a white supremacist? As far as white supremacists, alt-right, white separatists, white nationalists, or people who everything they support and every policy they push for is to the effect of white supremacy, I just classify all of that in the same category. And in that case, Steve Bannon is definitely a white supremacist. Do. So how do we counter fake facts in the discourse? How do we counter it? I don't know. I don't know that it is our responsibility to counter it. You just counter it by saying stuff that's not false. I get a lot of, look at it this way. I get a lot of emails and messages from people, and a lot of other political progressive YouTubers get these emails, and we've talked about them. I get emails where people are like, you know what? I used to have a lot of shitty viewpoints, and I used to believe a lot of nonsense, but your videos help me to think about it in a better way. And you notice I don't fucking make response videos. I don't do debates. Yet people still were able to change their views by watching my videos. So I don't have to make a response video to a ludicrous person. I just have to make videos that make better arguments. So I don't think that it's my responsibility to directly debunk anybody. You know, if that's what you want to do, live your life. I just don't think that that's, I think certain formats are flawed. I think that public debates can be useful. I don't want to do them ever, but I think that they can be useful. But response videos specifically, I think are just not that great. Chad, thank you for the $5. Just want to say congratulations on 100K subs. I appreciate that, my friend. Is there a subject you really like to know about but have never learned about for some reason? I don't know all of them. I want to know all the things. I used to not study, but I used to watch a lot of content and read a lot of content about like astronomy and cosmology. And I really want to get back into that. Actually, I've been thinking about getting back into it because it may be the most interesting thing there is to me. It's just fascinating. But also, I think that there are some topics that don't warrant response because they're so ridiculous. Like, you know, well, it depends though. But like, for example, something like white supremacy, that we don't need to have a debate about white supremacy. Like, it's so like self-evidently immoral and ridiculous. It just doesn't really warrant response at this point. You know, maybe it did like 400 years ago, but at this point, we should be beyond that. But people are tricky with it because now the way that people sort of express white supremacy is they invoke pseudoscience and they talk about things like race realism and things like that. And those things may require somewhat of a response. But that, you know, that's the strategy. You know, they try to make things more palatable by appealing to things that are the average person can latch onto, because the average person knows that white supremacy is not only immoral but ridiculous. So when we do get more specific into like science and things like that, we can provide quick responses. But I don't think we should dwell on that either. Kevin, thank you for the $10. You're doing good work, man. Keep it up. I appreciate that. If there was one song you wish the entire world could hear, what would it be? The song "I Love You All" from the movie Frank. If you've never seen that movie, it's good. But the movie is about a fictional band, and the band made a real album as a soundtrack to the movie, and it's fucking good. And sort of like the signature song of the movie is "I Love You All," and it's like one of the greatest songs ever made. Thank you, Neil's reviews music. Thank you, Queen Freya. Don't I feel alienated by leftist YouTubers focusing so much on academical theories? Why would I feel alienated about that? I think everybody has their lane, and people just make content about what they feel is important to make it about. It didn't really have anything to do with me. Thoughts on ContraPoint's somewhat problematic aesthetic video. I don't know. Someone has to explain to me what the problems are. If the problem is, hey, this fictional character said something that's not that cool, I think that doesn't sound like a legitimate problem, because that's the point of a character. Like, if you think that fictional characters can't be problematic, you must have some real problems with like every villain in every movie. So I don't really get it. So perhaps it means it hasn't been explained to me correctly. Did I see Philosophy Tube's mental health video? I have not seen it. I've been watching more Philosophy Tube lately though, so I'm gonna catch it. I'm gonna try to catch that. Why do people assume you're a leftist? I could have sworn you're a progressive liberal. I don't know what any of those words mean, to be honest. To me, it sounds like a progressive liberal would be a leftist. So that's why a lot of these labels are really weird to me. And I think that people, different people are thinking of different things when they use the same terms. That's why I'd usually much rather just answer specific questions about my ideas. I think that when people say leftist, people just sort of they forget that left is a spectrum, and they just assume that all leftists are sort of in this one little circle. But I mean, there's obviously degrees of leftism, and I would say that I'm left of center on basically every issue, which seems to qualify me as a leftist. But I'm not as far left as some other people, for sure. I think it's easy to watch the aesthetic video and feel like she's trying to say that there's a right way to be trans and invalidates non-binary a bit. I viewed it as internal dialogue she has. Yeah, I mean, are these people new to ContraPoints? Like, this is literally all of her videos. None of her videos have never said, hey, this is exactly what I believe and what you should believe. That's why there's so many characters that all have different viewpoints and they all clash. I don't know, man. I don't know. Whatever. Let me not talk too much about that. The problems are like this. Say some black person is saying some kind of anti-black-ish that if heard by a white non-black person can be used to justify their garbage anti-black bias. Well, I mean, that's a risk that you take when you make stuff. And I think that you should think about stuff like that, and you should be responsible with your platform. But at the end of the day, you're not responsible for someone misinterpreting your work. The problem with ContraPoints is that she has become sort of like this queer icon. So she's just subject to more scrutiny than the average person. So I guess people hold her to a almost impossible standard of perfection in terms of talking about trans issues, I guess. Because there are plenty of YouTubers out there that exclude non-binary identities in their work, and they don't get all this pushback, But when you sort of, I don't know, I don't want to I don't know. Like I said, I don't really think it's been explained to me. Not that it needs to be explained to me, but I don't really understand. And a lot of this, and this is something that I've realized, and I've talked about this before. Mostly, this is just mad people on Twitter. Like, let's get that. I don't want to completely discount the opinion of everybody who has a Twitter account, but there's something about Twitter that just riles people up, and it just seems to misrepresent the views of a group of people. Like I've said before, that any person can use Twitter as an example of them being persecuted, anybody with any political view whatsoever, because pretty much anything you say can be just hopped on by a group of angry Twitter people. I would probably argue that most people are fine with ContraPoint's video, but there's just a group of loud people on Twitter that just, their goal is just to sort of just yell at everything. Tumblr is way more pleasant than Twitter these days, which is hilarious to me. And to be fair, people were saying that after the video, she tried to sort of clarify some things on Twitter, and people made it worse. That made it worse for people. I don't think I saw what she wrote, so maybe that would explain it, but I don't know. But I think that's sort of the problem with putting so much of yourself out there, and it's sort of a blessing and a curse, because I think part of the reason that ContraPoints has been so successful is because she's been so vulnerable. She's made herself so vulnerable to her audience. And people sort of really relate to her and they really look up to her because of that. But at the same time, when you make yourself vulnerable, you reveal the fact that you're not perfect and you don't have all the answers, and you fuck up sometimes. And, you know, when people are that sort of obsessed with you and you show them that you're not perfect, that can lead to a lot of drama. And this is something I realized. This is the difference between YouTubers and most, you know, traditional celebrities. If you notice, most traditional celebrities, they don't say shit. They don't tell you their opinions on anything. Some of them do, but most of them don't. And I think the reason is they don't want to break this facade of untouchable perfection that they have. But YouTubers, on the other hand, you know, they get their sort of engagement by being vulnerable, by appearing to be a regular human being. But people still become just as obsessed with them, and just as, you know, they look up to them, they think they know them just as much as they do celebrities. So the problem with that is when you do reveal that you are flawed or that you may not have it all figured out, that can really disappoint a lot of people. And especially when you're a political YouTuber, because politics is the way people look at politics. People look at politics in a very binary way, where it's like you either have the right opinion or you have the wrong opinion. And so if you say something that people perceive as the wrong opinion, you could just get, you know, hashtag canceled really quick. I try to look at, I don't know, man. Social media is just weird, because the thing is, you know, I talk about mad Twitter people, but in honesty, a lot of the tweets were generally civil, you know. A lot of them weren't, and a lot of them were just, you know, people being assholes, which is going to happen. But the thing is, when you have so many people all disagreeing with you at once, it feels like you're being bullied. It feels like you're being harassed. And that's like sort of the problem with having such a platform and social media in general. So it's like, I don't know what you do about that. Electric Lomain, thank you for the $2. So, by the way, in case you don't know what's going on, if you tip rather than super chat, I can read it. You can leave a message. It just doesn't pop up on the screen, but I can read it on the internet. Who are your favorite Viners or Instagrammers? Marlon Webb, King Batch, Daystorm. My favorite Viners. I don't know if I had a favorite. I watched a lot of King Batch. I just remember individual vines. I don't really remember the Viners. But this is one thing that I feel good about, at least in the position that I'm in. Like usually when people talk about like left tube or lefty tube, I'm usually considered as being part of that, and for the most part, I'm okay with that characterization. But I think that I've cultivated an audience, and it took me a while to really figure out my audience. But I think that there's a lot of left tube people where they have to like watch what they say, because if they're perceived as not left enough or not woke enough or problematic, it could just really it could really result in some dogpiling and some bad reactions. But I feel like I have cultivated an audience such that I have more leeway in the things that I'm allowed to believe. And I don't have the most leeway, but I have more leeway because I don't know. I've stressed so much about, it's okay to disagree, and you need to be able to have a complex and nuanced view on things. And I've also shared some views that, many progressives don't necessarily agree with. So I feel like I've put myself in a position where I don't have to deal with that as much as other people, and I'm like pretty happy about that. So yeah. And then, but there are other people that are even too, like, I always use the example of Destiny, who I would never like speak the way that Destiny does. But one thing that I sort of envy about Destiny is like he can literally say whatever the fuck he wants, and his audience is fine with it because they just know well, Destiny's gonna be Destiny, and we like him for him. He says a bunch of shit that I don't think is cool to say or I don't agree with, but Destiny's Destiny, so I'm not gonna, we can't really get to him, and I kind of envy that, to be honest. Like, I do not envy people that if they say one thing that considered problematic, their whole audience is going to turn on them. I don't envy that, and I don't want that, and I don't think I have that, which is good. And I'm just gonna say what I think, and hopefully the things that I say are at least somewhat convincing, even if you don't agree, or at least you can see where I'm coming from. I'm not saying I'm just gonna just randomly say shitlord stuff or just randomly like have a right wing view on something. But you never know. I try to be evidence based in my views, and I try to be compassion based. So if I say something that's super inconsistent with those things, that might be weird. I think I probably have I think you probably have a calmer audience than most. Yeah, and that's probably just because I am generally calm. And I really think that your audience to some extent is going to reflect you. Sometimes it doesn't. Like the example that I use is Boogie2988. I don't know, maybe he used to be more of a shitlord back in the day. But he seems to be he has like weird views on things a lot, but overall he seems like a super, super nice guy, and just wants to be happy and wants everyone to be happy. But his audience can be like super fucked up sometimes, and I don't know how that happened. I appreciate that. Chris's tease. I think a lot of leftists in general don't seem to understand that a given speaker audience is broader than them and their woke friends. Like, not everything is aimed at you. That a given speaker's audience is broader than them and their woke friends. Oh, yeah, for sure. Another thing that I've been thinking about is, MythCon happened recently, and, I've I made like many Twitter threads about MythCon, but an interesting thing about MythCon is it's an interesting clash of online persona and real life persona, and I think a lot of the audience doesn't get that. Like, when you're, for example, like people were. A few people were upset that, some of the progressive people there were friendly and hanging out with some of the more reactionary people there. And the audience is, a lot of people are like, oh, no, basically they're like, you're supposed to be their enemy. You're supposed to hate them. Why are you having drinks with them? And this is something I've been thinking about. Like, when you're an adult and you're in public, you have to be like polite. That's just a thing that people do. You don't just, you don't just, it's not a war 100% of the time, Yeah, and Brunchgate, that was from VidCon. But also, even beyond that, I'm gonna guess, I don't know, but I'm gonna guess most of your favorite progressive YouTubers probably have good friends, family members, people that they like unironically, that have views that you probably think are problematic. This is just how the world works, I always say, like, if I met fucking Armored Skeptic and Shoe on Head or people like that, if I met them at a bar, I would probably be friends with them. Because I have friends like them. But I think that a lot of the audience doesn't understand, it's the online persona is different from the IRL persona. We and ideas are often separate from people. Like, you can acknowledge that someone has a bad idea, while also acknowledging that they're not that bad of a person. Some people, I think, are bad people, as far as I can tell. There are a few people that I have no desire to hang out with, or have brunch with, or have a beer with, just based on how shitty they are on the internet. But that's not everybody. What's up, Cell Uno? Appreciate it, Connie. Thanks for coming to the stream, Amanda. Appreciate it. Are you sleeping on your bed without a sheet? Oh, my sheet is in the wash right now. But that's just something I've been thinking about when I was seeing all the reactions to MythCon. But again, for example, if I had brunch with fucking, I don't know, Shoe on Head and some other people, I don't think that my audience would freak out as much as some of these other audiences. Maybe they would. I don't think they would, though. Well, I think the way that a lot of people act on social media is just not really practical, and just not like, it's not reflective of how a person can really live in the real world. Is brunch a common activity in your life? Not my life specifically, but brunch is very, very popular. At least in my city it is, but I think it's very popular among my peers in general. I know some people and I have some friends that go to brunch literally every week. But like I said, even though online persona is going to be different from your internet persona, I don't think that justifies just being a terrible human being on the internet. And some people are just terrible human beings on the internet, and those are the people that I don't want to have brunch with. Well, at least in the city that I live in, it's like a foodie city. There's a lot of like really trendy restaurants everywhere, and they pretty much all offer brunch. So, and also this is a city where people like to drink and they like to make excuses to get drunk, and brunch is a very good excuse to get drunk in the daytime. So people enjoy it here. Do you think that domination of STEM at the expense of liberal arts is a problem, like less training and empathy and openness that liberal arts can offer? I mean, I think it's a problem. I guess the problem is that most liberal arts fields are less lucrative than STEM fields. I'm not sure if that in and of itself is always like a problem. But maybe it is. Like, maybe that needs to be changed. It's something worth thinking about for sure. But yeah, I definitely think that liberal arts and arts and things like that are important and probably essentially just as important as STEM. What do your friends think about your YouTube stuff? I think that most of them don't actually watch it because they know me personally, so I don't think that they're as interested in the YouTube version. There's a few people that watch them though. Most people are generally supportive though, you know. Like, I made a thread on Facebook saying that I got 100,000 subscribers, and you know, I got like over 100 something likes and a lot of comments, people saying congrats. So people are supportive, but I think that most people don't actually watch. If you had a friend that's saying some really troubling things on YouTube, would you discuss it with them or let them do their thing? I don't know. It depends on the situation, I guess. In general, I don't really think it's my responsibility to confront people about their own views. Like, I don't think that's generally, first of all, it's generally not fruitful. It doesn't lead to anything. But I don't really think that I need to do that. But if it's a situation where it comes up, or if they ask me about it, then I will definitely talk to them about it. I think that this idea that we have the responsibility to confront everybody who has bad ideas, to confront them personally, I don't think that that's a I don't think that's a good idea. Or at least I don't think that that's necessarily what we need to do. Do I know how to play an instrument? No, not really. I know a couple of chords on the guitar, but that's it. I think confronting, calling out people is antagonistic and often counterproductive. Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing about it is, usually when you confront somebody, the way it comes off and the way that it usually is, hey, you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why you're wrong and why I'm right, and why you need to change the way you think, and you need to start thinking the way I think. And very, very rarely is that an appropriate way to approach someone. And often, calling people out is done as a way of sort of punishing people, which is definitely not the way you need to do it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't think you should expect there to be some kind of magical way to change someone's views. It just seems very, very unlikely. Appreciate it for those about to rock. The best you can do, if you feel like you want to confront them, that's your choice. It's your prerogative. It's not. I don't feel the responsibility of doing that to people. But the best you can do is just try to share good ideas on your own time and hope that they eventually learn. But some people don't eventually learn. That's just the way it is. You can't really control how someone else feels. Like, I used to have a lot of views that I think now were pretty problematic. And I don't think anyone ever directly confronting me ever really helped. I had to change my views over time, like gradually, just by being exposed to different ideas over time. Never has someone just like came up to me and just instantly changed my mind. It's very gradual. What's your favorite episode in Broad City? I don't know. That's really hard. That's like one of my favorite shows. I love every episode. I don't know. The episode where Abby loses her phone and they go looking for it, that's a good one. Or the episode where Abby blacks out and becomes Val, that's also a good one. What I always say is the first step to changing your views and evolving is you have to first of all even accept the possibility that you might be wrong, and you have to be willing to admit you're wrong and change your views if you are provided with better evidence. And I think that step is something that each person has to take on their own. I don't think anyone will ever convince you to cross that first bridge. Once you cross that first bridge, then you can be persuaded. Then you can, you can let info in and eventually evolve your views. But if you don't even consider the possibility that you're wrong, if you don't even accept the fact that you might be wrong, then you're not going anywhere. And it even if it's things that you were very, very convinced of. I think that a lot of people think that just because you are really you have very steadfast beliefs, that means that you're unwilling to consider evidence. But no, you can believe something, and then if you have been given evidence that it's not true, then you stop believing it. I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, but eventually that's how it works. I think the issue there too is that evidence is subjective to the values of the person hearing the argument. See, the skeptics community not seeing social science as evidential. Well, that's really just confirmation bias. That's literally just people dismissing evidence that goes against their view. I don't think it has anything to do with being subjective. If it was something else other than social science, they would dismiss it as well, just because it contradicts their view. Because social science, they didn't just put the word science on there just for kicks. They put science on there because they use the scientific method and they use data collection and they do studies. It's science. So it's, to me, I think that's just sort of disingenuous, like confirmation bias. Because even science that isn't social science is often dismissed. They dismissed data from the fucking Department of Justice and the Bureau of Labor. Like, they'll dismiss all of that stuff as long as it doesn't agree with their view. Yeah, every person is subject to human bias and cognitive biases. No one is immune from that. But that is part of being a thoughtful and honest person, is thinking about why you believe what you believe. And like, we're not a slave to our biases. We can change our minds, we can improve, we can change. That's one of the cool things about being a person, is you can think about stuff and you can understand when you're being a little bit ridiculous and when you're being biased, and you can be like, okay, well, I need to change my view on that because it's not based in real objective evidence. It's based on bias. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what is meant by scientific dogmatism. But I think that science is easily the best way that we have to describe and explain the physical universe. And the thing about science is its processes exist outside of anything that humans think about it or can manipulate it. And if you study it closely, if you study any sort of scientific activity or research closely, you can determine whether it was done properly or not. Yeah, if it's dogmatic, I think that's the opposite of science. So that's why I'm not sure what you mean by that. I so rarely think about religion anymore these days, so it's hard for me to even comment on religion. Who's my favorite YouTube channel right now? Who is my favorite YouTube channel right now? Probably Captain Disillusion or ContraPoints. I'm trying to think of channels where like if I have notifications turned on for a channel, then I mean it's pretty good and I'm like super into it. And I only have notifications turned on for maybe like 5 or 6 channels. The issue, though, is that scientific study isn't done without context. There are biases that exist in things like what grants are approved and written to study, especially in medicine. Well, yeah. I mean, that doesn't... Well, yeah, as been said, bias doesn't invalidate findings. If the science was done well... I mean, that's part of... I mean, that's... I don't even necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. That's part of sort of the point of advocacy and awareness of issues is, you know, and obviously the government has a lot to do with it, and the government can really put a damper in studying things that need to be studied. But if the science is done well, if the research is done well, then it's still useful. But I mean, I don't think science. I think the point of science, the job of scientists is to do science, and the job of everyone else is to decide what is important enough to do science about. I don't think it's the job of the scientists to figure out what is important enough to do science about. That's our job, and then we just send it over to them. And obviously, the government plays a big role in that, and which is why we have to vote for good people to run our government. It all sort of comes together, you know. We all play a role. I mean, there are science. there are research studies that, you know, were accepted as truth for like decades until one day a group looked at them and was like, hey, this is actually bad science. That didn't mean that it wasn't bad science before. It just means that we never looked at it and commented on it. And that's why we just have to make sure that we are thoroughly scrutinizing everything. The idea that if a study or research is done and there's no real reason to believe that the science is bad, that we should somehow not accept it or not think it's useful just because of some vague principle about whatever, like that just seems weird to me. Like, to me, that sounds more like dogmatism than than science does. Has there been something you want to talk about on your channel, but you feel like it doesn't really fit with your channel? I mean, yeah. I mean, I come up with ideas all the time, and then eventually I sort of narrow it down to stuff that I think fits the scope of my channel. And the scope of my channel has definitely changed over time. And it's hard to really even describe what the scope of my channel is. But it's definitely changed over time, and I would say it's gotten a little more, well, for a moment, like maybe for a good 6 months, my channel was like pretty much a social justice channel. But I think I've opened the scope up a little bit since then. But before that, the scope was very wide open. It was just sort of like a personality channel where I just kind of talked about whatever and just did a bunch of random shit. You know, like one of my most popular videos is the top 10 most brutal Disney villain deaths, which I think is a good video, but I definitely wouldn't do that now on my channel because it doesn't fit. But you know, it would be cool to do videos like that, but it just doesn't really fit. That's another true thing, random CC, is the way that the media and especially the public interprets science is often very different from the way the actual scientific community interprets it. Like a good example is how how people talk about the two sexes and the two genders, which is completely at odds with the way that the medical and scientific community talks about it right now. And I don't even think they talk about it in very definite ways, but they definitely don't say like there are two sexes. But that's just, you know, that's just the way the public understands sexual dimorphism. And unfortunately, people use that to fucking be dicks to trans people and non-binary people, but you know, people are gonna people. I think a good practice is actually reading scientific studies and reading like the documentation surrounding studies about things that you're interested in. And it's, you know, they're usually pretty long and they're usually like a lot of information, but a lot of it is really enlightening, and you really start to understand that none of these studies and none of these researchers are almost ever intending to say this is the number one definite proof that everyone should believe. Like, that is almost never the case. Like, the whole point is sort of to create a body of research and a body of evidence. And sometimes two groups can research the same thing, but in different ways, and come to different conclusions. And you can tweak one little thing and it can completely change the whole results you get. And that's why it's important to have many studies and a body of research surrounding certain things. And I think the way that the media and the way the public talks about this sort of thing rarely reflects that. Oh, what's up, Rap Critic? Appreciate it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a very pro science person, and I feel like most people should be, but obviously, whenever humans are involved with anything, there's a very large potential for there to be something that's a little bit off. And that's why we have to scrutinize everything. We have to pay attention to what's going on. All right, Gabrielle, thank you for coming to the stream. Reporters, journalists often misinterpret the findings of studies. That's definitely true. Sometimes people don't understand what they've read. I remember there's this guy who used to always, because I made like a bunch of videos about the wage gap, and this guy always, more than once, maybe like on 3 or 4 occasions, he would basically link me this study, and he would be like, this study proves that there's no wage gap. For one, you know, one study isn't the end all be all, especially if there's a huge body of evidence that supports it. But the thing about it is, the study that he was linking me did not support what he was saying. Like, the study that he linked me showed that there was, in fact, an unexplained wage gap. And I don't think that he understood what the study was saying. So that was real weird. But that happens a lot, where people just don't really understand what they're talking about, or they just don't bother to really read it or to really thoroughly like understand what's going on. Maybe we just need our studies to be written to be more accessible to the average person. That way there won't be so many misconceptions. I don't know, man. They are usually not that hard to read. And this is coming from a guy who's like, you know, I don't think I'm an above average reader. You know, I don't know that many words. I feel like they're not. The thing about it is they're long. That's the main thing that makes them inaccessible. They're usually really long, which is why sort of, you know, journalists and articles sort of summarize everything, even though that's not necessarily the best way to do it. But, you know, assuming that the journalists do a good job of actually understanding what the studies say, which these days you never know because, you know, clickbait is just real big. So you never know. But I honestly don't think they're that hard to read. Usually. I think we should be taught more about statistics and how to read studies in high school. Some of them can be confusing. Healthcare triage is a great resource to learn what questions to ask. Healthcare triage is amazing. It's a really good channel. Science is built on hierarchies as well, something to consider. Are they all justifiable? Science is built on hierarchies? I don't understand what you mean by that. I don't know if I agree if that's true. What do you think about Jacqueline Glenn? I have not watched the Jacqueline Glenn video in maybe like 2 years. It seemed that Jacqueline Glenn was, I don't know, seemed like she was like halfway on the anti-SJW stuff, but then she also, I think she identifies as a feminist, so I'm not exactly sure. Way back in the day when I used to watch atheist content on YouTube, I remember watching Jacqueline Glenn and liking it. But that was way back in the day, maybe like 10 years ago or something. 8-9 years ago. I wish you would chat with Rogan. I would be happy to chat with Rogan, but I don't think that I am notable enough for that at this very moment. Yes, science can be biased based on who's allowed to do the science, which is super complicated. For instance, we have a lot of neurotypicals who study autism and start off with bad assumptions. Well, when you do science right, you test your assumptions. You test your hypotheses to see if they're right. If you are doing some kind of experiment or some kind of survey or something, and one of your assumptions is just treated as a given, then that's bad science. And that's happened before, you know, but usually when that happens, someone notices it and they're like, hey, that's bad science. A good example of that is, I think his name's John Lott. He published this book with a bunch of like studies about guns and gun laws and whether gun laws are effective in reducing crime. But basically the whole thing, he just begged the question. He just assumed that his hypothesis was true. So all of the data was formed around his hypothesis being true. But he has, his stuff has been thoroughly called out since then. But I have no problem with the idea of there needing to be diversity in science fields. I definitely don't have a problem with that. Right. I mean, you may not even know what you need to test or what assumptions you need to test if you don't have the right people there. But also a lot of that comes from public advocacy and public awareness of certain things. Sergey Land, thank you for the congrats. I'm gonna be doing a sort of good old fashioned 100K Q&A video pretty soon, because apparently that's what you do on YouTube when you hit subscriber milestones. You do a Q&A video, so I'm gonna do that. I made a post on the community tab on my channel. If you want to leave me a question on there, you can do that. I think that a lot of things that aren't science are just passed off as science. And I think that the way we talk about science just in our everyday life is flawed. And of course, a lot of things that are passed off as science are sometimes literally just, propaganda or just confirmation bias and things like that. But I believe that if we show enough scrutiny and if we pay attention, that we can notice things like that. We can call it out. Everything definitely should be more inclusive and more diverse, I think. I think that always leads to better and just more practical outcomes. Jordan Peterson is a kind of pseudoscience. He has a degree in psychology and suddenly knows everything. Yeah, that's the thing that happens too, is we sort of like think that an expertise in one thing somehow equals an expertise in everything. And that's definitely not true. That's why I try not to claim expertise on anything, because I don't want to be perceived as someone who just knows anything. Like I like when I make a video about something and someone who actually is an expert on that thing comes in and adds more context. Like that's always good. Or even if they correct me, like I want that. But I don't like the idea of saying, science doesn't work all the time. Like, obviously call it out when it's done wrong, but don't assume that it's done wrong if you don't have evidence that it isn't. Do you know any YouTubers that address how current political issues are affecting Asian Americans? Most of my Asian peers are buying into the model minority and becoming more right. The only one I can think of that has talked about that is Marina Watanabe. But that's not all she talks about. But she has definitely made some videos about Asian issues and Asian American issues. Her channel is called Marina Shut Up, if you don't know. But she's Asian American, I believe, or she's like biracial. So she's touched on it before, but it's definitely not the only thing she talks about. Other than that, I don't know. I can't even think of any other like Asian American YouTubers that are progressive. Conservatism is literally killing Japan. I don't know that much about the situation in Japan, actually. Is there a YouTube channel you're a fan of that might surprise people? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what would be surprising to people. I'm a fan of Gabby Hanna. Is that surprising? I'm a huge fan of Liza Koshy. Is that surprising? I don't know what would be surprising to you, other than like me saying like I love Paul Joseph Watson, which is not a thing that would happen. Why do Asians have such disdain for African Americans? I guess the same reason that everyone else has such disdain for African Americans. It's definitely always better to have multiple studies, but I don't think that it's useful to assume there's a fault if you have no evidence that there is one. Yeah, I don't know what side of me I think that people haven't seen or that would be so surprising to you. Like, I don't know, like, for example, I really like magic. So I'm subscribed to a bunch of magic channels. But I feel like that's not that surprising. It may be interesting, but I don't think you're like, whoa, really? But maybe it is. Maybe it is surprising. Like magicians, illusions. Although I do like the game. But I mean like literally like magicians and stuff. Like I think you still need to try playing D&D. Yeah, I have a group of friends that play D&D every week, and they keep asking me to play, and I think I might play with them. Do I have any of Gabby's music? I don't have any of it. I've just seen some stuff that's been on YouTube. I mean, I think I have a very eclectic YouTube taste. I watch so much random shit on YouTube. I watch a lot of gaming stuff. I'm sure that's not surprising, but I watch a lot of gaming stuff. There's a lot of vloggers that I like. I watch a lot of clips from sitcoms. Oh shit, David Pakman interviewed Lacey Green. I didn't see that. I want to watch that. I'm just looking at my like homepage right now, seeing what they fucking got on here. Tangra, man, thank you for the $10 Canadian. Congrats on 100K. Favorite album group right now? Any videos you wish you made when the topic was more relevant? Toaster strudels or Pop-Tarts? Okay, definitely Pop-Tarts. Favorite album or group right now? I don't really keep up with music. What's the last album? I haven't even listened to an album in a long time. I don't know. The last full album that I listened to and liked was probably 444. So I don't know. And that was like a year ago or something, wasn't it? Any videos I wish I made when the topic was more relevant? I don't know. I think I don't necessarily like making videos about current events and hot topics and stuff. But there are some things that I feel like I should have, just because I think people would have been interested and it probably would have got a lot of views. Oh, this shit like translates how much money it is. That's dope. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't think of one right now. Electric Lamaine, thank you for 333. T1J, I'm out, man. Congrats again, bro. You continue to be an inspiration to me and my friends. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for coming to the stream. They have a an RPG game called, I think it's called World of Wrestling, something like that. It's a professional wrestling themed RPG, and I really want to play that one. I'm gonna see if I can get my friends to play that one. Do I like punk? I don't know. Not specifically. I'm sure there are punk songs that I like and ones that I would like. Actually, I think they play they play D&D on Mondays. I think they're playing right now, actually. So if I do play, I will have to probably end the stream earlier than now, because I think they start around 4 and it's like 5 now. Tanger man, thank you for 283 Canadian. Here's the rest of the tenor. Does that come out to? Well, no. That's wait. Is that gonna come out to 10? Who's the GOAT of wrestling? My favorite wrestler of all time is Sting. 100% for sure. I'm doing a massive essay on film as propaganda. My main questions are: is propaganda inherently negative, and is it possible to make a film that is not propaganda? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, I guess it depends on what you are calling propaganda, like what counts as propaganda. Every film is essentially an argument. A lot of films make the same argument. Like, for example, many films argue that if you're courageous and strong, that you can achieve your goals, you know, stuff like that. Is that propaganda? I mean, if you consider that propaganda, then yeah, then probably all films contain propaganda. And if you consider that propaganda, then no, propaganda is not inherently negative. But I think that every story, including film, everything that tells a story is, at the end of the day, is making some kind of argument. Sometimes it's a sometimes it's a platitude, and sometimes it's a pretty trite argument, and sometimes it's a thoughtful and deep argument. Sometimes it's like there are filmmakers that I think subvert the idea of films having a point. And in those cases, you can maybe say that they don't really have an argument. Okay. 221. But yeah, like for example, I'm thinking of like old Tarantino movies and probably tons of indie bullshit. But you know, like the movie Pulp Fiction doesn't really have a point, or at least it doesn't have like a overarching argument that I think it's making. So I think that some films may subvert that. So I don't know. It's worth thinking about for sure. Wait, what argument is The Room making? If you want to see a really good analysis of The Room, watch H Bomber Guy's video about Control Alt Delete. There's like there's a section in that video where he talks about The Room, and it's an analysis of The Room that I've never heard before, and I thought was like really cool. Basically, he essentially said that The Room is a tale of a guy. Wait, I don't know if I don't want to mess it up. It's sort of like when a guy and a girl break up, and you ask the guy what happened, and the guy's like, I don't know, man. She just went crazy on me. Obviously, it's probably more complicated than that. And it's probably more than just her going crazy. But from his from his perspective, that's what he thinks, or at least that's what he wants people to think. And basically, The Room is a film version of that. It's a film version of, I don't know, she just went crazy for no reason. And I never really thought about it like that. And when you think about it that way, it really like makes you look at the film a little bit differently. Information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Well, if it has to be political, I don't know if I think that all films express a political point of view. But the vast majority of films definitely want you to believe something, and the thing that they want you to believe is often and usually biased towards a certain mindset, whether it's like Western culture or capitalism or ideas about gender roles, things like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was from the Control-Alt-Delete one. Because the whole thing about that video was that he kept slipping in and out of reviews of different things. Hello, Galago. I'm actually going to leave in about 10 minutes, though. We are rapidly approaching the 2-hour mark, which is about how long the streams usually are. Well, I mean, I think that I'm a believer. Not everybody agrees with this, but I'm one of those people that think that authorial intent doesn't matter that much. I really don't think that The Room was very thoughtful. I don't think Tommy Wiseau. I think he's just bad at making movies. But when you can take something from a piece of work after it's been made, I think that's still worth discussing, and I think it's still useful, and I think it sort of demonstrates why art is important and why art is good, or why art is a good thing to do. Thanks, Cooper. But, it's weird how these streams always come full circle, because one of the first things we talked about was Contraborn's most recent video and how a lot of people did not like the portrayals in the video. And that's the thing about art, especially fictional art. You can't control how people are going to react to it. And that's something that you have to consider. Now, if you make something knowing, hey, people might react to this in a certain way, and you make it anyway, then that's on you. But I don't think like it that's a little bit different, because I think people are associating the ideas of fictional characters with the ideas of the creator. And again, that's the difference. It's one of the big differences between YouTubers and like filmmakers. Like no one has accused, no one accuses a filmmaker of thinking or agreeing with the villain in his movie, but that's just one thing that YouTubers have to deal with, because YouTubers are so sort of like personally attached to their viewers. Mm-hmm. But that's why film criticism is so good, because it makes you think about things and it makes you see things in a different way. And even if it's not what the creator of the piece meant, it can still change the way that you think about the piece and the way you think about future pieces that you watch. People kind of do like how bad character in Tarantino movies say N-word a lot. Plenty of folks call him out for that. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's not really a movie criticism. That's just like a criticism of him actually sitting down and writing. But I don't know. I don't really agree with that criticism. So it's hard for me to really parse that. But I mean, I think it's fair to be curious about why Tarantino makes his characters in all of his movies say the N-word so much. Yeah, but that's the thing about ContraPoints. None of her videos ever have a hero character. And or maybe that's the problem, because that's something that Natalie's talked about, because she created the character Tabby, who was literally supposed to be like an exaggeration. Like, she was supposed to be seen as kind of ridiculous. But so many people latched onto her as like, I like her and I agree with her. And that wasn't really intended. So I think that by unintentionally creating a hero character, that people may be looking for more hero characters like that, even though none of the characters are supposed to be hero characters. I don't think any of them are. Not even like the narrator. But I don't know. I could be wrong. But I think I'm gonna get ready to go. Appreciate it, Adrian. Thanks for everybody for coming to my stream. If you don't know, I stream every Monday afternoon. I started a little bit late today, but I generally want to get started around 1 p.m. Central Time. Thanks for everyone who helped me get to 100,000 subscribers. It's a big milestone for me. I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I finally did it. Follow me on Twitter if you have Twitter. That's the best way to keep up with me and hear from me and talk to me. If you'd like to send me a more in-depth discussion or a question, feel free to email me at hello@theonejanitor.com. If you want to support this channel in a long-term way, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. It's the best way to support me. Definitely thanks for all the donations and super chats that I got today. I got a higher than average amount today, so that's good. I guess people are just helping me celebrate. Well, I guess that's it. Like I said, I'm gonna do a Q&A video for 100,000 subscribers celebration sort of thing. If you want to ask me a question for that, just go to my channel and go to the community tab, and you should see a post where you can reply to with a question. And that should be coming out soon in the next few days. Other than that, I'll see you on the stream next Monday. Or if I decide to do like an impromptu stream, I may actually like stream on Twitch at some point during the week, play some video games. So if you're into that, follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/theonejanitor. But I don't really have a schedule for that yet. Anyway, I guess that is all. I'll see you later. Bye.